Okay, are we ready to get started? Okay, awesome. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Um, I am calling the meeting to order at 12:33 on December 6th. I guess we'll do our, roll call. Mahina Tudor, Chair of the Rules Committee, Environmental Advisory Council member. Onauna, do you just want me to go one by one, or how are we doing it these days?
Yeah, don't forget to mention if there's somebody in the room with you.
Oh, sorry. Nobody in the room with me today. After kids being home sick for a couple weeks, so that's a miracle. It's a Christmas miracle. I will pass it on to Makala. You want to go around?
Sure. Aloha. Makala Kamoana. I'm on Kauai and I am alone. And congratulations on getting 2 children not sick at the same time. It is a miracle.
Ron, do you want to go next?
Yeah. No, that's okay. Ron, would you go next?
Ron Terry on the Big Island. Nobody's in the room.
Maybe Rachel?
My name is Rachel Sprague. I'm on the island of Lanai and no one is in the room with me.
And Dawn, maybe?
I'm Dawn Hager Nordblom. No one's in the room on Maui.
Onauna Thone, I'm on Oahu in room 405, and Les Segundo is in the room.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for making it to the meeting today. I'm so sorry that I haven't held a meeting for quite a while, in between traveling and just being so busy, not being able to get it together. So I appreciate you guys meeting today. Really, the only thing on the agenda is discussing our potential kind of committee policies and procedures. I'm hoping everybody had a chance to look it over really quickly. It's super bare bones. So this is basically, going back to how each committee is putting together its own draft policies and procedures for our guidance. I'm not really sure what to call this now that we don't do rules. So I'm, if we're the rules committee or the guidance committee, or whatever it may be. But yeah, that's all I'm hoping we can do today is really just quickly discuss that, and see if anybody has anything to add, any edits, any ideas, all that kind of stuff. So I'm sorry, I don't have the ability to share screen with the little setup that I'm working with today. Yeah, does that sound like a plan to everyone? Oh, no, I don't know if you have anything to add on that. I know you've been working on the larger, policies and procedures.
I'll just, thank you for working on this first draft. I mean, I do think we should continue to call this committee, rules and guidance, because part of our role is to assist with the rules, and by statute we are a required party to be consulted. Mary Alice had previously indicated that for any rulemaking related to chapter 343, she really envisions that we would still take the laboring oar on it. So we'll see, depending, we'll see what the new director, how they want to go with that. So for now, I would actually maybe keep the name as Rules/Guidance Committee. And, to that, to effectuate that, I think under the procedures part, we would still have to, kind of add in some of those rulemaking procedures and how we envision that happening. But those are kind of my overarching comments for now.
Cool. That's helpful. Before we dive in, does anybody else have any thoughts on like process or our purpose or anything like that? No,
I
okay.
did have one little comment related to work with OPSD staff to articulate and manage the process of formulating appropriate guidance. I think not just the process, I think the content as well, because we have an opportunity to take advantage of institutional knowledge that's, fairly priceless. And that's especially Les Segundo and to some degree Tom as well. And I think, we want to work with them, while they're still working for the agency, and sooner rather than later. They help create much of the OEQC guidance through the years, especially Les. And I want to make sure that we take advantage of his knowledge and all that.
A good
It's a
point,
great
Ron.
point. Mhm.
Right, on that same bullet for work with OPSD staff for guidance, I wonder if it's more appropriate to say work with ERP staff, because we're not doing guidance generally for OPS. There's a lot of different departments under OPSD. I think we do work with OPSD on the rules because they're the actual agency charged now with any promulgation of rules under 343. But I think, and Les, correct me if I'm wrong, you folks would still be the division within OPSD doing any guidance on 343s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. So yeah, so maybe for number 3, if folks are amenable, we could say work with ERP staff instead of OPSD staff.
That's perfect. Yeah, thank you both. I'm taking notes, so I will edit the doc accordingly. Perfect.
Chair, I wonder on that point, is it, if, I know that we don't hear Les's voice very often. I wonder if in this process, there's a specific way that we could encourage him to say, okay, well, we used to do it that way, but it doesn't work that way very well anymore. Or this, I've noticed this change because it's been changed for a little while now, and maybe he's had some experience. And if we could specifically elicit from Les and Tom some comments, and push them a little bit to say, we used to do it like that and it didn't, or we used to do it like that and it really was better, that's something like that I simply wouldn't know.
Yeah, we can do that. I can share this. I don't know if Tom has a copy of this, the rules, the guidance that we're drafting now, but he can chime in too on it. Yeah.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's one of those cases where I don't know what I don't know.
Mm.
Okay, awesome. Great point. Thank you. Taking note of all this. Starting back at the top, I guess, of subsection B, which is procedures for the committee to draft, review, and update guidance. When I was putting this together, I was kind of just, going through our motions, but I can't think of if we're missing anything, if it should be more detailed than this. Any thoughts on starting from number 1, review request from government agencies, community members to produce, review, and formalize guidance. And then there's community outreach, working with the agency. Number 4, I threw in environmental justice goals because I know we've been talking a lot about that. Yeah. Open forum if we're missing anything at all.
I think the purpose statement, if it was me writing it, I would do it more narrowly and maybe say the purpose of this committee is to produce guidance on the administrative rules implementing HRS Chapter 343. I know our statute uses the words, concerning ecology and environmental quality. But we don't really have the staff to do that. And, DOH really, water quality, for example, right? They have rules for that kind of stuff where it's kind of not in our wheelhouse, even though it's kind of, it is what our statute says. So I think I view our role kind of more generally in terms of really sticking to the chapter 343 process and providing guidance on that process. I don't know how others feel about that.
I have a comment. Number one, Mahina, how you say review requests from government agencies. So have there ever been any government agencies that have asked in general, and maybe Les knows or Ron knows? Because to me, it seems like a lot of government agencies are short-staffed, and so they're barely able to keep up with the work to do any permits or do anything. And so I feel like it's almost like incumbent on, I hate to say it, on the committee or the governor or DBED to push, not DBED, but you know what I'm saying, like the ERP program, to push the fact that we need better communication between the agencies. That's just my thought, because I don't think a lot of staff people realize that you can reach out to the environmental council in general, maybe 1%.
Well, we have had a number of inquiries through the years.
Yeah.
I remember probably the most significant one was the judiciary. That took some of our time about 3 years ago. Remember that, Onana?
What was that one specifically on?
They were wondering whether they needed to, was subject to 343.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Through exemptions committee, because I know we get a lot of outreach through exemptions.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was strictly exemptions or more broadly.
I vaguely remember if they had, I thought it was if they had asked if they needed to do a exemptions list.
Yeah.
It was, right? Okay.
Yeah, but they're part of
They're separate.
they're not an executive branch agency.
Yeah.
So we had a long discussion there. I think mostly at the council level about that, and I don't think that's the only instance. People ask. They also ask before that. They used to ask OEQC a lot, and Les refers some of them to us.
Yeah, I know when the new rules came out, the biggest request from agencies was guidance on the exemption process. So Les and Tom and Scott worked on, and Ron, you may have as well, that kind of, I think it was a 2-page, quick and dirty guide to the new exemptions process. And then when was the last time you guys did 343 guidance? That was the 2012 version?
2012.
Yeah, so there was overall guidance that ERP actually did for just generally, how do you, what are your documents do you file for, what do the comment letters look like, that kind of thing, right? Yeah, so that hasn't yet been updated since the new rules went into effect. And that was something I know we've talked about, and then COVID hit, right? So we are behind on a lot of the guidance stuff that we said we wanted to tackle since the new rules have been promulgated. But yeah, I don't know. I think Les, you would definitely know what other kind of inquiries come in. I think there are more specific inquiries for OEQC on, sufficiency of documents and process wise, right? Yeah, so I mean, to the extent you guys want to put or ERP, I think council and ERP could work on updating the overall guidance document that people have seen for 343 generally, and then I think the stuff that we publicly said, I think the cultural guidance has been one of the things, right? We're still kind of on our plate. We've been wanting to provide some guidance on that. We haven't quite gotten that off the ground. And I think we all recognize that's not going to be, we're not going to be able to do like a quick and dirty 1 or 2 page sheet. We wanted to do consultation and make sure that we do everything in the right way and getting the right parties involved for that. So that's a long-term goal. That's hopefully doesn't take too long. Hopefully some of us are still on the council. By the time we get that done. But yeah, it's at the top of our mind. But yeah, I'm not sure, Ron or Les, you guys probably have a better idea of what other things come in. What other inquiries.
Well, I've seen some agencies developing their own guidance, interestingly enough. I saw DLNR had a sheet about how to sort of enter the EA process. I just saw it yesterday. A very nice little sheet that some engineer put together in the engineering division. And I think it took pieces of the old guidance and melded it with the new rules. And I thought it was an excellent little thing. And maybe when we do our guidance, we can use a little bit of it. It's a checklist for agency personnel to move through as they get a new project.
Kind of like a green sheet.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, kind of like the green sheet.
Yeah, with a little twist. I'll share it with you guys at the appropriate time.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad folks are doing that, and maybe as we develop ours, we can even invite that engineer or whoever can be the representative to talk about that. And if it's helpful to us, we can kind of formalize it more generally for other agencies.
I know Ron and I had an spirited discussion on 343. Because so that's the thing, I think that a lot of people don't know. They don't even know what, I mean, I know Ron, but they didn't know what 343 was or how it applies or how it's connected. And, some of the permits that you do apply for, there's no explanation,
I think what's really confusing about chapter 343 is that there are triggers
Yeah.
to enter it, and then there are permits and
Mhm.
approvals. And they can be from different agencies, different sort of events and things like that. And trying to put those two things together, you almost have to be a lawyer, to keep those two things in your mind at one time.
Yeah, so maybe guidance can explain that a little bit more in a little bit more detail. I have to go back. I haven't looked at that chart that, Scott and ERP redid on the new rules, right? The bubble chart, and if yes, then here. Can probably take a look at that again, or just, remind people that we have those resources available.
It comes up in community a lot.
Mhm.
It's on my desk today for a project here, and if we don't ask for it, if we don't ask for an EA, they weren't going to do it, and nobody else is going to scream for it. Nobody else was going to ask. And the landowner and the attorney were just gonna, do their thing, and I guess get slapped after. I don't know what happens if they, they were going to get a permit, whatever. And it is what you're talking about. It's just short staffing and all the rest of that nobody's watching, because we have brought it to the agency's attention, and they just said, we're not able to address that right now. Well, great. Well, then what happens? So on they move. And I don't think it should be the landowner's, sole responsibility to know this stuff. Somebody should be. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it just, we kind of all have to know. So I hope when we go through that process, and that you might remember from way back when we talked about the green sheet, my perspective on that was that it would be in simple enough terms that, and the bubble chart helps, right? So that the community can use it as well. Because, if you do this, then you have to do that. The community could say, are they doing that? Is that, it helps them get into the wheel.
Point taken on that, but I'll just say it for the record. I mean, it's not always that simple as of if A then B. So there are areas where it may not be clear. Or, I mean, we live in an environment where typically things wouldn't be required, but people are making enough of a fuss of it where then agencies will tell you need to do something. And it still doesn't mean it's necessarily required under the law, right? But, you know, different issue, but kind of relevant. So that's why it's not always.
No,
There
I
are
get
certain
it.
cases where it's
I'm
black
making,
and white and others where it's not, yeah.
I get it. I'm making a fuss, right? So, you
Yeah.
know, it was gonna slide and then I made a fuss. Because it's not right, but you know, it has, certain things have ramifications down the pike, right? So if this one goes, then that one's gonna slide, da, 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 and over, you know, when you're my age, you start to see that tumbling stone going down the hill, that if you'd gotten the process right at the top, you know, you could have avoided all of that. It doesn't make it harder, doesn't take longer, just do it right.
Yeah, there's also just a lot of gray areas. There's words in our statutes and rules that mean things that we don't quite know when we start looking at it. What's an action? What's an activity? Who's an agency? You know, what's an approval? You know, there's instances where it's very clear and others where it requires courts to make decisions about it. And, you know, honestly, half the time I think they make bad decisions. And because it's hard.
Yeah, it's not plain English.
It's too plain sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay, great
Yeah.
discussion. Thank you, everyone. Kind of moving on to the next point. Conduct community outreach to engage in meaningful consultation. I know that's especially important to our council. Is there anything else you think we need to add there or keep it simple? Yeah.
Is
Yeah,
that INO or is it more than INO? You know, would be my question. Is it more than INO? Is it more than just putting the information out there to get that kind of feedback? We got that kind of feedback when, you know, when Scott folks went around the state and did all of the, you know, the new rules and so forth. They were accepting comment and so forth. And even then it was hard because people were just seeing it. I think, you know, I don't know how to get more participation or back and forth out of that. Because sometimes what we're saying in INO is this is the way it is. You know, you don't get to tell us what you think about it. This is the way it is. But so I don't know what we mean by the back and forth part of that.
Yeah, I have the same question as applied to the scope of, you know, this committee now transitioning to consulting on rules and guidance. So for general rules process, I would envision if we do any rules update, we would probably have a similar consultation process, you know, doing drafts and trying to get input from folks so that we can get people to buy into the administrative rules ahead of, you know, them actually be promulgated. Now, in terms of guidance, though, I don't know. And I'm not saying this to say like we don't want public participation, but guidance is really the agency's interpretation of its rules. So maybe this needs to be teased out more in terms of, you know, yeah, conducting outreach with respect to amendments or, you know, repromulgation of rules. But guidance is kind of, in my view, and if others disagree, please speak up, you know, it's again kind of internal with the agency interpreting the rules. So I don't know what role we would have for stakeholder participation in that particular exercise.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
my thinking in keeping it broad for now was thinking particularly about how we want to tackle cultural impact assessment guidance and how we were really envisioning a robust community outreach you know, part of that process. But yeah, I mean, I agree, Onana, that beyond that, I can't imagine other
Mhm.
scenarios where that would come up as much.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I almost wonder if like saying cultural impact assessment guidance, maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's not even the right way to characterize that because we're not there yet to even do the guidance portion on that. So yeah, maybe we need, I think we do need to think of that process in terms of outreach to stakeholders for that specific subject matter. And what we want to get out of that. I think the guidance is what would come out of that process in that case, yeah. Good point, good point.
Some of the guidance documents that we make, I don't think will involve consultation with anybody in
Yeah,
particular. You know, some of it is just sort of mechanics,
Mhm.
and I don't see the point of consulting. Others, it's critical, like cultural impacts. Environmental justice is another one you bring up, so that we can understand what, you know, what people are interested in seeing in the documents. But so we have a variety of goals in our guidance by a variety of audiences.
yeah. So maybe for that, we can add some language, like conduct community outreach where necessary. My fear, of course, is always public looking at this, and then what if we put some guidance and they're like, well, you didn't do outreach, you know? So I just want to make sure we have flexibility, you know, when necessary as determined in the EAC's discretion, something like that. Just so we have some cover in terms of, yeah, I think everybody here, we're like, okay, if we're doing cultural stuff, we already have a process in mind, but yeah, if we're gonna do the, how do you submit a submittal form, I mean,
Right.
yeah, no consultation on that, right? Okay.
That's a great point. I'll add that in for the next round. So I feel like we've covered 1, 2, and 3. Number 4, provide guidance to incorporate environmental justice goals. I threw that in there for now. Just a thought, you know. I don't know if we want to elaborate on that or, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the statute that required that in EA. Do you guys have that language around? Yeah.
Is that meant to be like a guidance topic or actually in our procedures for all guidance, like overarching guidance? I'm just asking the question because I guess the bullet points almost look like our procedures. If the EJ portion is a guidance topic like exemptions, cultural assessments. I don't know if we mentioned that here, but if your thought was that it needs to be in all of those things. Because again, if that's the case, I think we add the language, you know, where appropriate again, because the EJ, I mean, maybe EJ considerations go into how do you submit a form, you know?
I don't think so. I mean,
Probably no, but I mean, access, yeah.
I think every EA or EI, and especially in EIS, should consider environmental justice issues. And you know, I always do. I bring it up explicitly. Maybe not every single one, but like 90% of them, because I come from the NEPA practice as well, where that's very important. But I'm not sure that everybody else does. It was put into law that we need to consider it. It's problematic, and that's where our guidance could be really helpful. You know, the federal EA, federal law on, it's an executive order on environmental justice, requires you to determine whether there's disproportionately adverse impact to low income or minority populations. And that's a handful. Finding, you know, you have to identify low income and minority populations to some degree. It's not easy to find. That's not easy data. It's not out there. We have poverty rates for on a district-wide basis usually, or large CDPs like Kailua and Oahu, but they're estimates.
Mhm.
And they're like plus or minus 13% kind of thing. And it's hard sometimes to find. Minorities not so difficult because every person in the census, at least, puts their race down. So we have precise data, but it's not geographically very fine sometimes. It's difficult to get at the geography. Here we are almost 2023, and I'm still looking at census data from 2010 to get precise numbers. The 2020 census is not out yet for precision stuff. So this is areas where guidance could be helpful to allow agencies and their consultants to do realistic, feasible type work.
Dawn, did you have something to add?
No, I was just gonna say that to me, environmental justice is more NEPA, but I know what Ron's saying too. And again, I don't think this is something that the common lay person knows what it means, like what is environmental justice. So I think some education would be needed to explain to the general public, and because Makala might know, but Makala's neighbor might not know. Yeah.
Well, and Makala's neighbor might use it inappropriately as well, right? So, they hear the word. I mean, come on. They hear the word and they go, oh, I'm gonna hang on to that. That sounds good. That sounds like it means something. That's gonna help me, without having a clue that they have to meet some sort of a standard or criteria, right? Just, I mean, people that are disenfranchised are gonna grab hold of whatever they can, right? You know that.
Yeah, and that's where environmental justice and equity does mean different things specifically under NEPA versus in the larger sense of
Mhm.
a lot of environmental groups. Like I'm on the board of the National Wildlife Federation, and they are trying to work on a tribal and indigenous partnership strategy and an equity and inclusion, like both internally and externally in their dealings with communities across the country. And they talk about it very differently than just low income and minority.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They talk about it as constituencies, as for tribal, for example, does the smoke from that burn pit reach my house?
Yeah, I think we should probably be aware of that, but maybe stick with the stuff that was given to us in statute. So when we do it, we need to look at that language really carefully.
Yeah, that's the thing. It has to be, we have to be aware of it. There should be a little pocket or puka somewhere in all of this that we can stick at least references to that so that whatever gets out, because part of what I care about, as you all well know, is making sure that every, inclusiveness that, and it is a lot of teaching that has to go with it. Nonetheless, we can make it easier for people. I mean, I'm grateful for consultants who do that, but Ron, they ain't all you.
Well, not everybody thinks I do it the best either, so whatever,
I didn't say best. I haven't seen best yet, but I think,
Yeah.
I think.
Try to be fair.
Yeah, it's a matter of priority. It's a matter of, it's also a matter of experience. Where did you get a correction, or where did you learn to make life easier for yourself and your client, that kind of thing.
I've worked with it a lot on like landfills or landfill expansions or
Right.
stuff like that. It's really interesting.
And that's where it comes up, because what is actually impactful on the site, and then look at potential drainage, and then look at potential smoke, and then look at the truck coming up the hill, and da 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 da. I mean, it's
Yeah,
It grows like topsy.
and cumulative impact,
Yeah.
that's, in Hilo, they stuck the dump, the airport, the industrial area, and what else? A sewage treatment plant, all in the Hawaiian neighborhood.
And that ought to be
And,
illegal.
and then we come in and say, hey, we want to do the dump. We want to do better, we want to do this or that. And
Yeah,
a lot of people just say, get out of here, go do it somewhere else.
Because piling on is piling on. You do it in a place where it's easier to do because the community rise up.
Welcome our office. Thank you so much. I'll call you tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I found is that's missing from a lot of environmental justice considerations, and it's part of the law, is that the communities need to be consulted. You don't just analyze data. And if you're building a bike lane, you don't have to go crazy on consulting people, but if you're building a landfill, you need to go out and talk to the community and not just one little meeting or something. And that's what I found our county governments were reluctant to do, to engage in a meaningful dialogue. They don't mind standing up and get tomatoes thrown at them one time, but they don't want to start a meaningful dialogue where the community actually can make suggestions that might actually happen. So anyway, I'm going on, but
Yeah,
if we
it's
do have
not, it's
environmental
not often a
justice guy,
dialogue. It's not often a dialogue.
I'll
and
have a
one of
lot
the
to
things-
say.
Me too. One of the things I think is true, and we can make easier in some ways, is that, the people that the agency sends out to the community to do the dog and pony show have not the deepest knowledge. And so when they know that they don't know, then they get freaked out. Fair enough, I would too. And so one of the things that community has been able to figure out is that if they can establish a relationship with these agencies early on, just in general, then they can become the phone call that agency makes. And what are we missing here? Who should we be talking to? Da, 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 da. And they're more comfortable, more confident, they're more comfortable. And so is the community. It's not a filter. It's a support. It's an assistance.
Okay, great. That's very helpful, everyone. I appreciate that discussion. I'm going to try to find that statute and look at the language more carefully, and play around with the best or a way to kind of reference that or think about that. The last kind of number that I threw in there was answer questions from the public about our guidance in general. I don't know if that is part of our role. Now, I don't know if you have any thoughts.
I think that's a good one. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what we should be doing. Answering questions. I would just say about EAC/ERP guidance, because depending on, to the extent we can help with that if needed. But yeah, otherwise I think that's.
And I would like a process somewhere in this to respectfully and kindly and gently ask the agencies and departments, how can we help you in this? How you're having to do this stuff. Is there a way? Would a definition of terms help everybody or no? I mean, I don't know. What would make their life easier, so that they're more willing and more open.
I'll give some color to that when, what was it, 2 or 3 annual reports ago, when Roy and I, we picked those 5 agencies and we went and did interviews with them. A lot of the agencies, and I don't know if it's just because, they're not concerned too much with 343 process, or they feel comfortable enough with it, but the biggest way they said that we could help is to get the legislature to give them more money and more workers. And that was resounding from all of the agencies that we spoke to. So I don't know how much power we have for that, since we have a very difficult time getting our own budget. But that was in our report. I mean, we put that in that every single agency certainly requested that. But yeah, I think that's fine too, to continue, keep contact with agencies and being available. And I think, you know, Ron, you do such a great job of it through exemptions committee of, you know, keeping the lines of communication open. I feel like agencies are pretty comfortable talking to Ron and asking questions on their exemption list, so. And I know people have no problem calling Les and Tom. I'm sure you guys get calls all the time, Les.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
no,
and just
that's a good one
because,
to add.
and just because they told us once and we reported it once, doesn't mean it's not a
Yeah.
continuing issue, and it is.
No.
And so, you know, when people have, you know, whenever we have, EAC has an opportunity, say it again. Say it again. You know, this is a continuing problem. This isn't new. We're not trying to nag. But it is an issue. You know, having the ability to do what they're mandated to do, that's an issue. And that's where stuff slips.
Mr. Guy, it smelled pretty tasty. I was in the mood for some cider. It's good.
I think, you know, a good example is Maui County. I think they're, you know, a lot of people have left and moved to different positions, and all those people took that institutional knowledge, you know, with them when they moved to these different divisions. And then I think also the new people that they hire, they're not really being quizzed on, do you know what environmental impact assessment is for, an EA is for, you know, what's a positive or negative impact. So I think that it really, I mean, we can't tell the county to hire people, you know, with master's degree or BA degrees or something, but definitely, you know, maybe we could create like a checklist or I don't know. I just remember I had to go to Big Island once when I worked for Hart because my boss thought I needed more NEPA training. And so I had to go and do one of those NEPA trainings for 3 days. And it was actually really great, you know, and maybe in the future, INO can do something where it's a longer training period, like a day period of going through all these types of things, you know, to identify what people don't know, right? And I mean, that's just a suggestion in the future, maybe like a year.
Well, OEQC used to do that all the time.
Yeah,
Every couple of years, right, Les?
Right, we did.
And it's needed. I mean, at the
And
recent
it was great. People
HCPO,
really appreciated it.
yeah, at the recent HCPO, when they did the section 106, you know, workshop, I was astounded with what people didn't know. People in the biz.
But they don't want to hear from us.
well, they
Yeah,
all
well,
have.
they're going to hear from us one way or the other, because that's what I said was, I'm here to help you stay out of court.
Sure,
Be my friend.
but everybody has a different opinion on a requirement. So, you know, also it depends on
Yeah.
on a state, right? Like the state might have a different opinion on whether LiDAR RON is required for a certain project. I don't know, you know, just you can drill down into it.
I
Yeah.
like LiDAR. I'm a big fan.
Okay.
Anyway, okay.
no.
I think, yeah, I think we beat that pony up a little bit, but thank you for letting us go on and on.
No.
Really, Mahina, you know this group, we could go on and on.
Well, that's a good segue to just say, you know, because our authority has changed a bit with this transition, if there's anything else you think this committee should or shouldn't be doing,
Within our authority,
yeah.
we be careful of the aspirational stuff because it's a bandwidth and an authority issue.
Mhm. And a funding issue.
That's true.
What funding?
And if not, I mean, I'll keep working on this. I'll incorporate everybody's edits and feedback for the next round. And we can all go have a few minutes to eat before the next meeting.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Thanks for drafting this, Mahina.
Yeah,
Thank you everyone for the discussion. It was very helpful. I threw it together very quickly. So I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks. See you at
See
1:30.
y'all.
See you
Okay,
folks soon.
thank you.
13 minutes.
Thank you, everyone.
aloha.
Aloha.